For those who fought in the Battle of Britain, it was a battle for survival. For the free world, it was a breathless moment in history. For failure would have plunged mankind into a new dark age. Never have so many owed so much to so few.
Okay, so welcome to the second stage of modding the Spitfire. Now, because I've gone all the way up to issue 30, I've got quite a lot to do. But after I built issue 30, I can see that the issue 31 is going to be an outer panel for the underside of the left wing and a hatch cover. So I suspect we're going to be doing a lot of work on the wings in the next 4 issues. Obviously I won't know that for sure until I receive my issue 31. So I think that's going to give me more time to do the engine. We're not really in a priority, so I'm jumping ahead and I'm going to be modifying the undercarriage, and all I'm really going to do is just paint it up a little bit, make it a little bit more realistic. But obviously, just like the first modifications I did, I need to take the magazine, I need to work backwards, figuring out what screws I'm taking out, placing them carefully in a place where I know where I can find them. Excuse me. And then obviously once I've got the screws stored and the parts, then obviously I know everything's in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I will get my screw pots ready, and I'm also going to get 4 plastic bags, and I'm going to place all my parts that I'm not modifying now into one of 4 bags, and those bags will represent issue 27, one for issue 28, one for 29 and one for 30. So let me get on with this and I will see you shortly. Okay, so once I've disassembled them, the parts aren't that big, so I've actually put 27, 28 in one bag, 29 and 30 in another bag. So what I'm going to do next is I'll do the undercarriage first, and then we'll start to look at the other parts. Now, there's loads of silver paints you can buy. You see there I've got some from Vallejo, I've got aluminium here from Tamiya. There's Citadel paints. Lead Belcher is a very good one. These Dark Stars are very good. I don't have any aluminium in Dark Star, but what I actually want, I want 2 silver colours, and the reason I want 2 colours, if I can get this out, I want all of this to be silver, but this part here I want that to be a nice shiny silver. So I'm going to go for slightly darkened silver and then an aluminium for the middle. So I'm going to select aluminium, and then I'm going to look at these. I've got exhaust manifold. These are really good. They're actually quite expensive, but they're really good. But I'm going to go for this steel, which is a silver colour, but it's slightly darker than the aluminium, so we'll be able to have the 2 tones. So let's get my palette ready. Now these, I have said in other videos about thinning paints. These actually don't need thinning. These are airbrush ready. You can thin them if you want, but metallics you don't thin with them with water. It just doesn't work properly. So we'll get our brush, and I'll start off with the steel, and I also want to paint the inside of this but not the outside, and then I want to just paint the wheel. This is why I haven't attached the wheel yet, because as you can imagine, painting around all of that will be quite difficult, whereas this, it's a lot easier to paint. I haven't disassembled this. I think we've established that this part along here won't actually be seen, So I will paint as much as I can, but I'm really not going to worry too much about it. So with the steel, give it a really good shake, especially for me because I've not used this particular paint in an awful long time. In fact, actually I'm going to cut it now, cut the camera, and I'm just going to pop this into my bottle shaker, which is rather loud. Okay, so I'm going to start with the steel. I've got, this is a palette pad, but equally you can use a tile or a proper, whatever you want really. So with paints that I've not used for a long time, I always do a waste drop over there. Just any crap that's in the top won't then be won't come through. So as you can see, this is a really thin paint. It is airbrush ready, but you can airbrush this if you want, but I'm going to do it with a brush. So, and you can see there that despite how thin it is, the coverage is absolutely beautiful, and it gives that really nice metallic colour. In my opinion, these are the best metallics you can get, with the exception of chrome. It's very hard to get a very good chrome. I do have a chrome pen. I can't remember what they're called, but I call them Molotovs. So we will give this a second coat, but it may actually not need it. So I don't want to go all the way up to the spring, because I don't want to, paint can act as a kind of a glue. I don't know if you've ever painted windows or doors. But if you paint them over, it kind of seals the windows shut, and I don't want that to happen with this spring. I still want the spring mechanism to work. So I am painting parts that won't be seen here, but I know it's done then. Right, so I'm going to speed this up, because watching me paint is probably almost as boring as watching paint dry, but yeah, so we'll just get this done. So one thing I forgot to do was take a photo before and after. So what I've done is I've painted this, and what I hope you can see from this is just with one simple coat, it's really brought those panels, those little rivets out, but even to the effect that just by having these on show, it actually shows off the unpainted part too. It really draws you out, just adds what we call interest. Okay, so that's those pieces done, and that's only a first coat, but I think you agree that it is slightly better. So we'll just let that dry for a moment. It doesn't take long to dry, because the substances that they've got in here, it's actually fairly quick drying. Obviously we could dry that with an airbrush as well if we wanted to. So I'm just going to give it a second coat. I will need more paint for it. Okay, so if we compare this undercarriage, which has got now had 2 coats, Whoops, with this bit that I've just dropped in the paint. That was lucky. You can see that although this bit is good, this bit is so much better. So it's that difference with that second coat. Okay, so what I've done next is I've placed all the pieces for 27 and 28 on its own separate piece of paper. I want to keep these separately because I will be doing them ever so slightly differently. Now, two things to note. Firstly, metallics work very well on black paint. So obviously these were originally black, so I didn't put anything underneath it because I put it straight onto black. They do actually work better on gloss paint, and I have this old tin of Revel colour number 7, which is black gloss. So I'm going to actually gloss these first. Once that's dried, then I'll put the metallic on top. There is, however, one thing. I cannot really tell if this is green plastic or if it's painted plastic. It feels like plastic, to be honest with you. So I'm not sure if the paint will stick to it or if it will need priming first. So what I need to do before I do anything else, I need to find a piece that won't show, and I'm going to go, whoops, I'm going to go for the inside of the wheel. This bit won't be on show once it's glued in. And all I'm going to do is, obviously, I've give this a good shake. I don't need to put this through the paint shaker because I've shaken it recently anyway. I used it a couple of nights ago for another project. And I'm just going to take just a tiny bit of paint, and I'm just going to paint the inside of this. And then I'm just going to have to wait for that to dry. It's a little bit thick. And then once that's dried, we'll give it a little rub. If it comes off, we know it's not sticking and we need to pop a primer on there. And if we do need to prime it, we might as well prime it in black. So there we go, guys. So I'll let that dry and then we'll see how it takes. So I've allowed this to dry for a little while, and I apologise about the light, but as you can see, it doesn't really stick too well. So I'm going to just apply some primer to that. But all is not lost, because all this really means is that I can apply some black primer and then the whole thing will look exactly like the other one. But there is, however, one piece of concern, which is this piece, because I do want to keep this the natural colour. So I'm just going to pop some masking tape on there, just so that I can I don't get affected by the overspray. Okay, so didn't take long to dry, but we've allowed that to dry. So if we peel this masking tape off, we should see, if all has gone well, we have protected the outside colour and we have painted all of the inside. We can always touch that up with a brush if we miss some, but the most important part is that there's none on the outside. So all that I've got left to do now is just finish off one little bit, which is this piece in there, and then we'll crack on and we'll get some weathering done, which I think is going to add a lot of interest and a lot of excitement. So the colour that I'm going to use is this aluminium. You can use chromes, you can use bright silvers, anything you want. It's just something to show you that there's something in there that's different from the rest of the undercarriage. It's just a little tiny bit, but it will add some interest. And one of the things I'm enjoying about this, apart from the fact that this nozzle is blocked, one of the things that I'm enjoying about this is, if you look at the amount of time it's taken us to build this straight out of the magazine, and then the amount of time I'm spending weathering it, you can see that I'm actually getting some rather good mileage out of this part work. So that has come out quite gunky, so I'm going to completely ignore that piece. That's a problem with my paint. It's because I've not used them for an awful long time, and like I say, you know, I waste that first bit, and that's because that's not good. Okay, I'm going to cut the camera, I'm going to clean this up, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so it actually turns out that this is no good. It's well, at the moment it's no good. It's been in storage for a long time, and it just needs thinning down a bit. So what I've done is I've switched to Tamiya XF16. This is a brand new pot, and just like I've shown you in other painting, got a stray bristle there. So all we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of this Tamiya. It actually doesn't really need thinning. So now with metallic paints, normally with acrylic paints you can thin them with water, but with metallic paints you don't. So what we're going to do is, it's this piece here, and all we're going to do is we're going to just carefully run a brush up and down, getting as close to the end as we can. Up and down. Don't worry about getting straight to the edge, all the way to the edge, because we're going to be weathering it. And what weathering means in this sense is that we're going to be adding some washers, and the washers will run into the corner. So if you've missed a tiny weeny line, that will get covered by the wash. And to be honest with you, because we're going to be adding a wash, if you don't get this coat all even, you get little patches of not quite so heavy paint. That's absolutely fine. This stray hair is bugging me, so I'm just going to get my tweezers. If that doesn't work, I'm going to get my nippers, and I'm just going to cut that off. Oh, that's annoying. So yeah, where you get paint maybe just ever so slightly patchy, when you apply the wash, the wash will just play with that, and it will give you a slightly darker, slightly lighter, or to put another way, slightly more realistic. There we go, and that's all that is. So now you can see that that's like a hydraulic action, so it really emphasizes that and just adds a little bit of interest. So you can see that when the aeroplane comes down and lands, that bit is going to compress, and or this, I think the top bit will come down to act like a kind of a cushion. So yeah, there you go. And you see right at the bottom, I haven't quite got all the way to the bottom. I don't know how well you can see that. It helps if I don't drop it. But what you don't want to do is get paint onto the outside of this. It's made easy because of the detail, and that I'm really happy with. We'll just do the second one, and watch this paint. It does dry rather quickly, so it means that it's going to dry rather quickly on the palette. You don't want to be painting with semi-dry paint, it's going to give you a terrible effect. And this is, for some reason I can't hold this very well. There we go. So that's the top bit done, so I'll turn that over, and then what I could do is do the bottom and then bring that up to the middle. So I think this one's going to turn out slightly better, because it is slightly scruffy, and in this particular case that's a good thing. There we go. Doesn't that look so much better? And we haven't even finished. Okay guys, so I'm going to clean my brush, and then we'll do some weathering. Okay, so when it comes to doing washers, there are lots and lots and lots of washers on the market. So it's really down to you which one you use. I have accumulated quite a few over the years. I apologise, I'm actually trying to find a tiny brush. So some of the washers that I've picked out today, you've got this nice one from Citadel, it's called Agrex Earthshade, and let me show you what a wash actually is. So you understand paint has got quite a fairly thick consistency, but this is much more like water, and what it does is it just emphasizes an area. It doesn't actually stick to the ray surfaces, it actually soaks down into the lower areas. So some of the washers that I've got is these secret weapon ones. I quite like these, sewer water, green, black. They've even got one called baby poop. But if you want, you can actually use a paint and you can actually dilute it yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use mainly a Agrex Earthshade, possibly greeny black or sewer water, just something really dark. But for the silver pieces there, I'm actually going to use a paint which I'm going to really heavily dilute, and this paint is old oil, which I think would be quite suitable. So pop on as little as I can on there. Excuse me. And then what I'm going to do is just get some water, and I'll just probably put about 2 or 3 times as much water as there is paint. We'll just see how that goes. That's possibly way too much paint, way too much water. So what we can now do is just basically have a play, and I'll just put my finger in some old paint. So there we go, we've got seriously heavily diluted. Over dilute it rather than under dilute it, because if you put too much on, it's going to look quite awful. If you don't put enough on, you can always spot some on later on and just do second and third coats. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit into the corner, and I can see that that's possibly under the diluted. So I'll just bring that up. What we're looking at here is just subtlety. And this will take longer to dry than paint, but it won't be massively long, maybe 10-20 minutes at this dilution. Just bring that down slightly, and then what we'll do we'll get on with the Agrax Earthshade, and we'll just go over that again with a different colour. But if you now compare the two, you see there's not a lot, it's just very subtle, and it doesn't really show so well on the camera. Don't worry about the little black bits on there, because that will all be sorted out later on. So let's finish this one off, then we'll get on with the weathering for the rest of it, and then by the time we've finished that, this should be dry, and then we can pop on another wash. And I just want to emulate that grease that would have accumulated just at the bottom, see, in the corner. Obviously these would have oil in them, and that will all get pushed down. I apologise if you hear me whistling. I've been listening to a song today, and it's really stuck in my head, but in a good way. It's a really good song. It's Dreaming by Blondie. There we go. Right, so remember to keep these in their correct places. So that's that one finished with. So I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade next, and this is going to be main highlight points. So what you want to do now is anywhere where there's a recess, that's where you want to pop your Agrax Earthshade. So we'll pop some into there, and this, it should run into the corners. There we go. So if I do, if you're not sure about the colour, again, you can always just dilute it down with a bit of water. Just that will make it a bit more subtle. There we go. So just with that, can you see that there's more interest been added? It's just highlighted things a little bit more. And what we'll do is we'll just go over that a little bit more with the steel, and that will remove just maybe where there's a bit too much. And then we can, if you see there, I've put a bit too much in that corner. That's not a problem. Just dry your brush a little bit, and then we'll just wick that away. There we go. So I'll get on with these, and then we'll have a look at it later. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finish this off. You see where we've popped this old oil. It's now dried, it's gone quite subtle. What I want to really do now is I just want to get some of this Agrax Earthshade right into the corners, just the very edges on the bottom, and that will emulate a really good build up of muck. And there we go, and we compare it between the two, and you see it really does look nice. I can't remember which one is which now. Actually, it's not the end of the world if you get these muddled up, because they are different, these two legs, and you can't really put them in the wrong place. go. I really like that. I really do like that. My focus doesn't seem to work very well on my camera today. And there we go. So you can see that that is, it's not worn out, but it's worn. That's not straight out of the factory. And that I'm really happy with. So we've kept it sort of semi-random. We haven't gone absolutely pristine. Why is that not focusing? There we go. And it's far from finished. So I'll see you shortly, guys. Okay, so we're not long off finished now, but what we want to do now is where we've overdone it with the wash, we just want to pull back some of that original colour. So what we're going to use is we're going to go back to our original colour. In this case it's steel. And then what I'm going to do is just pop a drop on my palette, and with a fairly large brush, what I'm going to do is get a little bit in my brush, and I'm just going to wick off the end just so there isn't much left on the brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into there and just pull back some of that, just to bring it back so that the darkening is more in the edges rather than all over. And anywhere you think there's a little bit too much, just go over with a steel, but really do not have an awful lot on your brush. So you see there, I've managed to pull back some of that original colour. I'm really concerned about my focus today. I don't know why it's not there we go. Okay, so that's that one done. And then we'll do that with any part of the model that we feel we've just gone a little bit too much with the wash. And I'm really avoiding any edges, any creases, because that's the area where we really want the build up. But any raised surfaces, any larger areas, we'll just pull that back. And then this one is really mucky, so we can just quickly run over there. We don't want full coverage. We want to leave those recesses darkened, so we'll just kind of scrub over it. And then I did highlight this little pipe there, so we'll just bring that pipe back because there wouldn't be that much muck on there. And you don't need to be precise on this, and obviously every time you put some paint on the brush, you just wick the end off onto a piece of toilet roll or kitchen roll, and then we just bring that back. We just want a little highlight. Alternatively, what I could have done when I put the shade in, or the wash, I could have gone very carefully around every single rivet, but I'm not going to do that. So also, when you consider that this piece is going to be an inside facing piece, it doesn't need to be as precise. I'm just going to run the steel down the middle and then quickly brush over the rivets, and there we go. And that's a much more natural look, I think. There we go. And compare it to this one. So I've just begun to bring that back. We went a little bit too far, and then now we've taken it back. So I will carry on. I will finish this one off, and I will do some on the actual leg as well. And then we'll do a final dry brush with some silver, and I think that will really make the whole model just pop. Okay guys, so the next bit is when the magic really does happen. We're going to do a process called dry brushing. So when you do any dry brushing, put all your best brushes away. get your horrible old brushes. You see this one looks ready for the bin, but it's actually perfect for dry brushing. So what dry brushing does is, if you want to highlight an object, you can do two things. You can make the dark areas darker or the light areas lighter. So let me do a little drawing for you. So here we have, that's blue, no, here we have a circle, and you can't see that circle because I've drawn it too low down. So you see there's a circle, and it's a nice circle, it's okay. In fact, actually we're going to turn that into a disc. So we have a black dot. No, sorry. Right, so here we have a red dot. And you see it's a nice red dot. But to make that stand out, what you can do is you can outline it. So you now see that stands out a little bit more. But another trick that you can use is, instead of having a solid, we just give it a little bit of shine on the highest area and highlight and outline it. And also, if we bring the line much further down, I'll just bring this closer to the camera so you can see that both of these, sorry, I didn't actually colour this one in enough, I'm trying to make a point, but you see that they're both the same red dot, but because this one has been, sorry, let me do the original dot. Right, so it's these two dots we're looking at, and you can see that they are, focus, so they're both the same red dot, but because we've made the low lights darker and the highlights lighter, it's made it a lot more interesting, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing with this model. So what we need to do is take a really bright colour. In this case we're going to use silver, and we don't want to paint, but we do want to apply the paint onto the surface, and we only want to catch the raised areas. And I'm going to use this paint here that's rather thick and horrible because that will suit our needs perfectly. So you're going to dip your paint in, brush into the paint, but then what you're going to do is you're going to rub all that paint off, all of it, as much as you possibly can. So you're going to get rid of all of the moisture in the paint, and then if you can brush onto your hand, there's too much, but you see there I've got just a subtle amount, and what we're going to do, you're going to love this, we're just going to run our brush over, and what that's going to do is it's going to leave all of the recesses, but it's going to pick off all of the raised areas. So if we now do a comparison, can you see how much that's just popped? So we've got all of the dark in the low bits, and we've got all of the raised areas are now much brighter. Doesn't that one just draw you in so much more? So same with this one, we just pick off the raised edges and we just add just a tiny bit of highlight, and I'm actually going downwards because the sun adds a little bit of highlight to it. Oops, try not to throw it all over the place. So we'll just bring that downwards. You see it's just catching the very edges, just adding a little bit of highlight, a little bit of interest. And there we go. So the paint will eventually run out, but as you can see, because the nature of you scrubbing the brushes, it will destroy brushes. So don't go out and buy a really good brush and just keep it really subtle. That's all you have to do. So just catch these edges. Okay, and then with this the same again. We're just going to run it along there, and we're going to catch all those raised edges. And this is great when you have things like rivets, because it will pick up all those rivets. It will just add just a tiny touch. See how it's just starting to pop. So if I hold the 3 that I've done with the 3 that I haven't, can you see the difference? You see it just a little bit of subtleness. So I'm going to get on and finish these off, and now I can't remember which ones I've done and which ones I haven't. There we go, that's the one I've done. So I'll see you shortly when I finish them. Okay, so I haven't don't know if this is the right leg, but I'll work it all out when I put it back together. But there is the finished leg, wheel. I think you will agree that is absolutely fantastic. So much better than the original. I mean, the original wasn't awful, but yeah, I'm really happy with that. So thank you for watching, guys. Obviously I've now got to spend time cleaning up my desk, but I hope you've picked up something from this, and I hope to see you in the next video, when I will be working. I'll be going back to the cockpit. Excuse me. Yeah, I'll be going back to the cockpit, and we'll continue weathering that up, and making it a little bit more realistic. So thank you guys, take care.